The Taylor and the Bautista families were sitting at one of the tables. Dimitri and his men were sitting with them. Stephen Nation and Ben Taylor had eaten with Jesus and then left to visit the chickens and new cows. Jenny looked at John with this look. "I'm sorry, honey, I knew Tony was hurt and I reacted poorly." John looked at Jenny for forgiveness. "Why didn't you let me know?" Jenny asked. "I knew there was a war going on and I did not want to put you in harm's way." John knew as soon as he said it how wrong it sounded. Truth is, I panicked and did not think. Jenny climbed onto John's lap facing him. "What are you going to do next time?" Jenny asked. "Call you up and take you with me?" John whispered. Jenny was crying and whispered back, "I forgive you." "I'm sorry, honey, our boy was dead and I had to get to him," John whispered, fighting his tears. "Okay." Jenny hugged John tighter. Willa was sitting on Tony's lap. She was also crying. "Where is my warrior, the granddaughter of 2 chiefs? Some say with a Russian accent you are the best shot in the world. I don't like seeing you dead." Willa hit Tony's shoulder with her fist. "Careful, I'm not fully healed yet," Tony shared. "Dad suggested I ask you to finish it. He said now I have an idea about pain and what a woman feels when she has a baby." "Something you would recommend?" Willa giggled. "Not in this lifetime. He told Brad the same thing." Tony shared, "I'll leave that decision about babies to you. I'll heal you." Willa took a deep breath. "Give me a few minutes to get my head on straight." "You can do it tonight," Tony suggested, wincing with the pain as he moved. "I have plans for tonight," Willa said roughly, then giggled. "You will need to be 100%, Willa giggled some more. Tony kissed Willa hard, and after many seconds to recover, he turned to Dimitri. "How long are you staying?" 4 more days. Pancho and your dad have asked us to help train the men and women that plan to go north." "Dad, can we get Pancho and his army some more M16s? Tony asked John. John nodded. "I think I have just the thing." John turned to Pancho. "Pancho, would you be interested in a really good deal on 10,000 Remington R-15s with 1,000,000 rounds of ammunition? This shoots the Upwalmtals U-23 round with 4 40-round magazines in semi-automatic. Each has what is called a combat scope." John had met with a Remington salesperson the week before. The old U.S. government had an undelivered order. The shipment was sitting in a warehouse in Lanoke, Arizona. Dimitri handed Pancho his M16. "That is a combat scope." Pancho looked up first through the scope. Pancho asked, "How much?" "I'll give you a loan, about $20 a rifle and a penny per round for ammunition," John suggested. "Yes, when can we get them?" Pancho asked. "Today soon enough?" John laughed, then grabbed his phone. After looking up a number, he called it. "Roger, this is John Taylor. We will take them. All 10,000 with all your ammunition and extras. I will send you 4 10-pound bricks of gold." "Roger, go stand in front of the shipment. Call me back when you are there." John looked at Pancho. "Where do you want the shipment?" John and Jenny, along with the fisherman kids, had left. Sally gave Dimitri a big kiss and a hug. She made a date for Sunday to meet at God. John had watched this budding love with some difficulty. He felt he should do something, but he also felt anything he did would be wrong. He looked at Jenny. She was no help. She was laughing at him. "You are to bring balance between the sexes," Jenny told him. "I'm still a dad." John shook his head. "And a damn good one." Jenny laughed some more. "I'm proud to have your children, Mr. Taylor." Dimitri and his men talked about what they could teach the men and women of Jose Maria Chetumal. Shooting their new weapons was the primary issue. Becoming 5 to 10-person units or squads would also be of immense help when in battle. Dimitri and his men would have a day or more before John's Minutemen volunteers showed up to help with the training. "Let's set up a range." Along the north side of the town square was a dense forest. 10 targets were set up by using some old plywood and boards. At 100 feet, a row of tables was built out of scrap lumber and plywood. This all happened very quickly. They had 10 from the troops of Jesus ready to test the targets. Someone had found an old big box of balloons and they soon became the favorite targets. They had another 20 tables built where the men and women would learn to field dress, take apart the new weapon, and clean them. The R-15 could fire at 60 rounds per minute in semi-auto mode. The AR-15 and the M16 were developed in the 1950s, 60 years before the R-15, and in the semi-auto mode, they both fired 45 rounds per minute. The R-15 was designed to stay level when shooting. The M16 and AR-15 both had their muzzle climb several inches with each shot. The first team of 10 stepped up to the range. They had their carbines with them. Dmitri, with the help of Gloria, had the 10 take up the carbines, and Dmitri had the 10 shoot at 5 balloons each when he yelled fire. The 10 fired for 30 seconds with over 100 rounds being shot. 48 of the 50 balloons were still there. Many thousands of the townspeople were behind the shooters witnessing the attempt. Gloria announced the results. 123 rounds fired in 30 seconds with 2 targets hit. Gloria waited for all to settle down. Now we will have them use the new R-15s. To save time, Dmitri had had the shooters pick up the R-15s. Dmitri's men were working with 2 shooters each and got the young men comfortable as much as possible in the 2 minutes allowed. Dmitri looked down the line, and when all was ready, ready fire, where he had a stopwatch. There were 61 rounds fired. The last balloon popped at 22.5 seconds. The crowd started yelling, laughing, and clapping. When Gloria announced the results, 61 rounds fired in 22.5 seconds, with 48 targets hit. Everyone was in the town square. The earlier noise had brought them out in the sun to find out what was all the excitement about. 11,000 people were screaming and clapping and crying as they realized 10 of their people could take out 50 of the enemy in 23 seconds. They also realized that 5,000 of the town could take on 50,000 of them and have a good chance of winning big. Dmitri looked at his men. They were all laughing and nodding their heads. He turned and looked at Willa and Tony. They were dancing with Brad and Gloria. Pancho was hugging his son. "We can win this war. We can clean our country of drugs. Thank you, God." Pancho turned to his wife with his face reflecting confidence, joy, and love. His little boy was jumping up and down in the backpack. "You, sir, can make this Mexico into a paradise," Maria told her husband. "Not me, my love, but we will make Mexico into a paradise." Pancho hugged his wife as he came face to face with his laughing little boy. Junior kissed his dad on the forehead. Dmitri climbed up on Gloria's little stand that was 2 feet high. "Let's see what's possible. Willa, pick your team. Everybody is available." Willa, Tony, Brad, and Gloria put their heads together. "I want all of us on my team," Willa announced. "Willa, take our husbands, the 6 Russians, and Jesus. I'll run it." Gloria shared. Willa and Gloria locked eyes, and a book of information passed between the two. Willa nodded. "I see what you are thinking, Gloria. Let's do this." Willa called out to her team. They lined up and fired their M16s and AR-15 at the 50 targets. The results were posted for all to see. 52 rounds, 50 targets in 9.7 seconds. Gloria let everyone know that this group was experienced with their guns. When new balloons were put up, the 10 picked up the R-15s for the first time to shoot. When all were ready, they looked at Gloria and she screamed, "Ready, fire!" When the counts were made, this was also posted. 51 rounds, 50 targets, 7.7 seconds. The confidence of the people that they had a good weapon in the R-15s, possibly better than the world-famous M16s, boiled over as the town screamed in joy as they hugged each other. Even with ear protectors, Junior complained about the noise. There was proof that these R-15s made everybody better and were easy to use. The training continued. Dmitri schooled the men and women on working as a team. If there was a target to the right or left after they had hit all their 5 balloons, they were to help. The times dropped to below 25 seconds and the number of rounds decreased. Tony, Brad, and Willa helped Dmitri's men in keeping the line moving. Men and women 10 rows back got to hold and look at their new weapons. That little act took 3 seconds off the times. Dmitri smiled when the first team hit all the balloons in under 20 seconds. From then on, the times bounced between 20 and 25 seconds. The time before all shooters were ready decreased to 1.5 minutes. When Pancho saw that this was going to take 3 days for everyone to work through the training, he shared that fact with the men and women in the back 2 threes of the lineup. "This will take some time. Come back tomorrow and the next day. Feed the chickens, milk the cows, water the fruit trees, and tend to the gardens." One of the men that were heading back to the housing, I'll make you and the instructor's lunch, Pancho. That would be wonderful. Oh, where's Owie? Pancho yelled back. Just after midnight, almost all had left the firing line to go to their houses to make lunch. A group of 21 had come in by horseback earlier in the day. They said they were from Belize and had ridden hard to get here. They were sitting under some trees watering their horses and themselves on the south side of the square. They were waiting patiently to speak with both the U.S. representatives and Poncho Batista. They had been here for about 2 hours watching the training. Another group of men came riding in. There were over 150 of them. As soon as they entered the town square, they started firing at the 16 that were still there. There were Pancho and Lorenzo with their 3 sons along with Teresa, the 6 Russians and the 4 from Omak. Gloria still had the stopwatch and hit the button shortly after the first round was returned. When she stopped the watch, it was just under 25 seconds. 3 of the men from Belize had been hit by some of the hundreds of bullets that the riders had fired. Many things took place at once. Several women ran to the 3 that were injured. Teresa ended up with the leader. He had a grazing wound on his right arm. She had the man sitting on a bucket as she attended him. The man watched as the horses were counted and led away. Buckets were filled with bullets and identifications and other small things. A big cart was filled with guns, holsters, and saddlebags. Canteens that each of the riders had been also put into the cart. "What's your name, mister?" Teresa asked as she tended to his arm. She had set her new R-15 against a tree. "Wendell Smith, aren't you going to put a bandage on that miss?" The man answered, then went back to watching the action. It seemed that thousands had come back into the square from all directions. "No, you won't need a bandage." Teresa had the wound closed and felt she was done. "Where are you from, Senor Smith?" "We are from Belize." Wendell Smith shared. Teresa did not have enough experience to accept her feelings as truth when she heard a lie. When this man said Belize, everything inside of her rang bullshit. "You will need to drink lots of water." Wendell Smith looked at his arm. "You healed it. How did you do that?" Wendell Smith demanded. He looked towards his men, and the other 2 that had also been hit by stray bullets were sitting up drinking water out of their canteens. Wendell Smith reached for his canteen only to find it empty. "I'll fill that for you," Teresa announced as she took the canteen and headed for a facet. Once there, she put the canteen between her legs and turned the water on and washed her face. She took a long drink, then took the lid off the canteen, rinsed it, then filled it to overflowing. She brought it back to Wendell Smith. "How come none of you got hurt? And you did these miraculous healings? How?" Wendell asked. "We follow St. John. He was here. He has taught us all kinds of things." Teresa looked at the canteen that Wendell was drinking out of. She looked out into the square and saw many of the other dead riders with identical canteens. "Got to go." Teresa grabs her R-15 and ran off towards the north end of the town square. Wendell looked out at all his dead men. They didn't have a chance. It was so quick he didn't believe what he had just seen. He looked to his men that were still alive. "Let's get the hell out of here. Let's get back to camp." He went over to the faucet and topped off his canteen. His men followed his lead. "Let's walk our horses out of here." The 21 men moved as a group slowly past the chicken pen and baseball diamond, past the southern edge of town onto the road that headed west. "Papa, I need to talk with you," Teresa demanded. "Honey, I got too many things going on just this minute. I'm trying to get the practice going again. Good job out there." Pancho shared, gave his daughter a hug and a kiss, and walked away. "Willa, can I talk with you and Gloria?" Teresa asked. "Come with us. I need to go to our tent." Willa looked to Gloria to explain in Spanish. Gloria thought for a few seconds. "Her women's cycle has come today." "Oh yes, I will go with you," Teresa responded. The 3 girls held hands, and in a blink they were in the clearing where the tents were. They all had their rifles. They did not go anywhere without their rifles. The fashion of the dress was cargo shorts. They were cut at the knees with 2 extra pockets on each leg. The extra pockets were deep enough for a 40-round magazine each. Willa went into her tent, and Gloria turned to Teresa. "What have you found out? The men from Belize were really with the 162 riders that we killed," Teresa shared. "Willa, did you hear that?" Gloria asked. "Yes, give me 5 minutes," Willa suggested. "What makes you think so?" Gloria asked. The leader told me his name was Wendell Smith. I didn't believe him. My stomach ached and warning bells went off. He told me he was from Belize. When he did that, all my warning bells went off again. He had drinking containers that were identical to all of the riders. Teresa shared. His canteen was empty, and I grabbed it and told him I would get him some water. I washed my face and drank some water. It was all I could do to keep my stomach from throwing up. Willa came out of the tent. She had a red rose in her hand. That man of mine knows me better than I know myself. Willa giggled. Tony had put a red rose on her pillow every month on the day her period started since they got married. Let me call Tony. Willa dialed Tony's number on a satellite phone. Next to the tent was a photo cell and a phone charging station plugged into it. Tony's phone was in the charging cradle, ringing away. Gloria dialed Brad, Sussex, and the three girls heard another phone ringing. Gloria looked at Willa and shook her head. Jesus, tell Papa, Tony, and Brad that the Belize men are riders. We are going to the road that goes by where you played baseball. Gotta go. Teresa hung up. Check your gun. Make sure you have a full magazine in it. Willa shared, Teresa, can you take us? Yes. Teresa looked at both Willa and Gloria, getting their approval. In a blink, they were there. 2 miles west of the baseball diamond, they were upon the rise of the foothills and could see the road winding its way east. Wendell Smith and his riders were about a mile away heading in their direction. The three girls heard something behind them and looked around. There were hundreds of men sitting under the shade of the trees just off the road. One of the men was drinking from a canteen like the others all had. Teresa, send Jesus a text. Have found 100 of riders 2 miles west of town. Bring troops. Gloria whispered, What do you think, Willa? Let's stop the boss man and his escort. Willa was looking around and realized there were riders camped out on both sides of the road as far as they could see. This boss man, Wendell, might be a major drug lord or even the major drug lord in Campeche. Text sent to Jesus, Teresa shared. Her English was getting to be fairly good. She had learned and remembered about 100 words in just the short time she had been around Willa and Gloria. Let's transport to within 50 feet of them, Gloria suggested. Do it, Gloria, Willa said. In the blink of an eye, they were on the road 50 feet from where Wendell and his group of 20 were coming on slowly. Wendell had made up his mind to come back to the town after dark and burn the town down. The 600 men he had left should be able to do the job. He still wondered how in the world only 16 people could take out 162 of his men. It was like his men were shooting blanks at the townspeople, but he and 2 of his men had been hit. When he was confronted with the 3 girls, Wendell very carefully turned his horse and pulled his revolver. He kept it hidden and fired off 2 shots into the ground. His men all came running down the hill. The 3 girls were caught between the 2 forces. Willa, Gloria, the men behind us are coming, Teresa shared. Gloria, Teresa, and I are going to take our friends to God. We are leaving you with Wendell. I am hearing his name is Wendell Gonzalez. Get him to tell you about who runs Campeche, Willa suggested. Willa, they are getting close. Teresa shared. On 3, 1, 2, 3, Willa shared. The men running down the hill along with the men riding with Wendell all disappeared. Tony, Brad, and Jesus, along with hundreds of others, showed up at the count of 2. You wanted to talk with us? Why are you holding your gun? Tony asked. I'm Wendell Smith from Belize, the man said. Tony, try Wendell Gonzalez from Campeche. Gloria suggested. We want to know who runs that state. The man gave a sour look at Gloria. I am the president of Campeche, Wendell Gonzalez stated. I come here in disguise for safety reasons. Mr. Gonzalez, you are planning on coming back tonight to burn us out, Brad stated. The man realized his intentions were apparent. He went to aim at Gloria. 4 shots rang out. The man fell off his horse. His horse looked at him and walked away to the edge of the road where some green grass looked more inviting. It joined the other 20 horses. I need 40 volunteers to search out those trees, Jesus called out. All 300 of his young men and women raised their hands. Jesus giggled. Go, he yelled, and they transported up to the trees. More men were coming from the town. Pancho and Lorenzo were among them. Off in the direction of town, shooting could be heard. Men and women were back learning to shoot the R-15 for the afternoon session. "What happens here?" Pancho asked in his version of English. Gloria had removed the saddlebag from Wendell's horse. She had been looking at the documents that she found in them. Many were addressed to the president of Campeche, Wendell Gonzalez, and the president of Campeche. Gloria handed it to Pancho to read. Pancho read aloud, "Here is a letter from a William Smith in Pachuca warning Wendell Gonzalez of the U.S. reps that may be in his part of the country. They need to be eliminated ASAP." It goes on to say he is dealing with a Peter Adams in his area now. There's more. It talks about there being 30 of them, and he is offering $1 million dead or alive for each of the 30 U.S. reps. "Where are Teresa and Willa?" Pancho asked. "They took the riders up to God," Gloria shared as she kissed her husband and held him to his hand. Tony and Brad looked at each other. "I want to go," Jesus requested. In a blink, the 3 young men and Gloria were on the west side of the sun. Willa and Teresa, along with a dozen other men, were picking up guns and belted holsters, putting them into boxes as the last of the riders went into the sun. When Willa saw Gloria, "Oh, good, we have been trying to communicate with these men. They have only been with Wendell for a short time." Willa hugged Tony. "I think they have a lot of information for us. We need to get together with Peter and all of the other U.S. reps. There is a bounty on us of $1 million each," Gloria shared. "I wonder if that is $1 million before Earth changes or $1 million of current dollars," Tony said aloud. Brad, Gloria, and Willa all gave Tony a smirk as they shook their heads. "It's nice to have a value of what we are worth." "I was just trying to figure out how much," Tony said in his defense. "Tony, I think the value is only if we're dead," Gloria grumped. "Oh, darn," Tony giggled. They took the 12 men to God. Teresa, Jesus, and Gloria were talking to them. They had been working for the silver mine. Wendell Gonzalez was one of the board members of the silver mine. They were sent from the big mine west of Campeche. Many of the other men had come from other drug farms in the Campeche area. About half of the men came from another much larger farm. The 182 men that went out with the boss man had all worked for him, leaving all the new men in the trees. When he left, he told the men if they heard 2 quick shots to come running. The scuttlebutt was the army was going to get involved to make it safe for the farmers. When Brad heard this, that's what the old USA did for the corporations when people stood up against them because they were poisoning the land and food. The government made it safe for the corporations to continue. From that point on, Brad became determined to put a stop to this injustice. He was no longer the big teddy bear, easygoing and always happy. He focused and made a mission of fixing what he knew was not right. The Mexican army standing up for the drug lords was wrong. The kids introduced the 12 to God and got a sense that they were good men. Not only in spirit, but if given a chance, they would show themselves well in action. They had all been in the army and had been trained in warfare. When the kids had them touch God, 6 got the tan and brown fatigues and the other 6 got the greens. When these men got to the rifle range, they set the 3rd best record. They instantly realized how 16 could gun down 162 in less than 30 seconds with such weapons as the R-15. The 12 men were housed in the school. They were shown how to get food. They were trained and quickly all had the blue lanyard around their necks. The Russians and John's volunteers had come and gone. Pancho now felt he had 2 battle-ready armies.